All right, so I've got some follow up tonight.
I saw.
Yeah, the first one was I re-listened to episode 0 a while ago, and I wrote down notes, and these were the two follow up notes that I had, and I had to like think about them for a while today to remember exactly what I was talking about, and I'll assume that I'm covering everything I need to cover with this, and that is that at the time I wasn't sure if my kids' school was if they were prepared for virtual teaching and learning and so forth, and after a couple of weeks, after the first couple of weeks of them being in school, it turns out they were pretty well prepared. The kids are doing okay with school. Everybody, students, teachers, parents all had to get broken in and got a lot of good feedback from the teachers and so forth, and we're able to have a relatively we were able to have a relatively smooth semester.
Are they? I realized we haven't actually talked about it in a bit. Are they going in person at all, or is it all remote?
It's all remote, and they'll be all remote for the second semester as well.
Yeah, I haven't paid a lot of attention to how the school out here has done. I know not far from Jacob's daycare, that would be Hoover Schools. They're doing Monday, Tuesday is one group that's in session in class. Wednesday, nobody is in class. And then Thursday and Friday, the other group is. And so the group that's in person Monday, Tuesday is remote Thursday, Friday, and vice versa.
Yeah. My my niece and nephew are actually going to go in person because they were not getting enough from their virtual. They did their first semester virtually, and they just weren't getting enough, and so they're going to be going in person now next, or that's the plan. Their parents' plan for them. So, just having heard what their days were like, it was very different from my kids' schooling, and makes me more, that much more appreciative of how they are conducting virtual classes.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see the different responses. I probably should pay more attention, but we also haven't paid as much attention because we've got the better part of a year before we have to worry about what that looks like for us anyway. And we're hoping that things will be a bit more stable by then, regardless.
Well, I'm hoping there will be a vaccine for the children by the time September or August rolls around.
Yeah, I don't remember where the information was. Emily was talking about the way they were classifying the different phases, and Jacob would be in an earlier wave than we would be based on availability and need and everything else. And I don't remember how it was described, but the idea was that more than likely he would be eligible the first half of the year at some point, where we may very well not be eligible until the third quarter or fourth quarter.
Really? You don't think you'll be eligible until the third or fourth quarter?
Again, I don't know exactly what she was looking at. It was just these are, rough time frames, and based on how much of the vaccine is available and whether that gets ramped up the way it was expected. And it was just trying to give semi-realistic timelines on what that meant.
I see. Well, I know right now there's no vaccine that is available for anyone under the age of 16. I can't remember which one is 16 and up. One of them is 16 and up, one of them is 18 and up. But I'm hoping soon they'll have enough tests done for children that they'll be able to get a vaccine. I'd like to think that they could get it before me. I feel like it's more important for them to be in school than it is for me to be in the office.
Yeah, for sure.
I did look at Alabama's Department of Health's rollout. They had like a 2-page chart on what the vaccination distribution is going to look like, and there's a phase 1 and a phase 2, and phase 1 is broken down into 3 parts, and that's basically frontline healthcare workers, secondary health workers that have high more likely to be exposed to fluids and aerosols, and folks over 75. And then phase 1B is like essential workers, and like a second tier of essential workers, folks over 65. And then the third part of phase 1 would be people that are in higher risk groups based on pre-existing conditions, medical conditions, and like a third tier of essential workers. And then phase 2 is basically everybody else. But there was in that chart, there was no dates or timeline or anything like that, just like what the rollout will look like.
Yeah, the last thing I saw today that was relatively interesting, Bama Tracker started tracking the vaccinations as well. And they were talking about at the current rate, it would take 13 years for the population of Alabama to be vaccinated.
I heard that, and it's like, it's going to have to get going faster than this.
Yeah, I have no doubt that it will. I know the initial discussions were that for rollout, the first couple of months were going to be probably quite slow compared to what we really need. But the hope is that everything would ramp up to be able to serve greater capacity pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I think like between Moderna and Pfizer, there's 200 million doses, so that's enough for 100 million people. It's just the logistics of getting those vaccines to the people. I think that's the bottleneck right now.
Yeah, back when it was first being discussed, I remember the difference, or there being a distinction that Pfizer can manufacture the vaccine faster, but since there's required special storage, it would be more difficult to distribute widespread. Moderna couldn't manufacture theirs as quickly, but could be stored on normal refrigeration trucks and things that were already in place. And so the hope is that the logistics of distributing the Pfizer vaccine allow for greater distribution capacity over the course of the month, 2 months, and Moderna is able to ramp up their production so that between the two, you could theoretically hit a much larger target by the end of the first quarter.
Hopefully somebody's looking at the logistics of that. I expect so. And hopefully on the 20th, there's a team that's going to hit the ground running to sort of grease the wheels of the machine that gets us vaccinated. And then there's also the possibility of AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson having their vaccines approved for emergency use.
Yeah, I thought I saw one of the two got emergency approval in the UK, and I don't remember which one, but I have a feeling those will be coming. I also have a feeling that a lot of the delay currently in trying to figure out a lot of those things has to do with the political climate we're in.
Sadly, yes. So the other bit of feedback that I had to do with a much slower moving area of the science world, and that is the Brontosaurus. I had mentioned that I couldn't remember, was Brontosaurus a thing? And then they took away Brontosaurus as being a thing, and now it is a thing. And there was basically an article that outlines that certain collections of bones that were put together and described as Brontosaurus might not actually be Brontosaurus. And I think the one in the Natural History Museum in New York might not be assembled correctly, but it'll probably always be there. Anyway, Brontosaurus is in a family called sauropods with Apatosaurus, which during the 90s, when Brontosaurus went away, it was just like a type of Apatosaurus. But it turns out that there's like a fairly large paper and years of research to actually indicate that Brontosaurus is different enough and to be taxonomically a different species.
I read over that link because I couldn't remember the discussion. I didn't go back and listen to the episode, but I noticed that it was predominantly down to neck structure, that the Brontosaurus had a different enough structure in the neck from the skeletal level to be classified differently.
Yes. I love at the end of the article they talk about the fact that we've answered these questions. This is a different species. It's not an Apatosaurus. But we have like a whole new subset of questions that we want to know about, even just related to the Jurassic period. I thought that was amusing.
Something I want to look up. I'm not going to, so I'm not going to list it as a follow-up item. But the Diplodocus, where does it fall in that range of species? Do you happen to know?
Not off the top of my head. I don't know.
Yeah, I know overall it is portrayed similarly as far as the long neck, long tail, massive dinosaur. And I'm just curious whether it's a subspecies or separate species, or how do you delineate from them? But I don't care enough to follow up on that at this point.
It's I just did a quick look, and it's currently classified as a genus in the sauropod order or suborder.
Well, I think that's a close enough answer.
Yeah, so it's fairly well related.
I noticed you also added a little topic about live photos that I chuckled a little bit, but I'm curious what actually you want to see occur by killing off live photos.
So I know live photos take up a lot more space in iCloud, or they're larger files. And a few episodes ago, live photos were discussed on ATP, that podcast. And the point was made, it's like, why do you send me a live photo if there's nothing to watch? There's no added value by having the live photo. And, I'm the kind of person that it doesn't like keep me up at night, but if I can do something about it, I will. Like, I sometimes will do something like a mindless task like this while I'm in a meeting. It's something I can do it actually helps me to focus, because I don't actually have to focus on the task because there's no cognitive or minimal cognitive requirements for the task. It actually allows me to focus on what's being said and a bit better than if I weren't, because like my mind might wander. That's the where I'm using low cognitive tasks as a way to keep my mind from wandering so that I can focus on the meeting at hand. And I went through. I have like 2,600. Like I'm at a point where this week my normal iCloud backups for my phone aren't completing because I've run out of space. And I'm planning on buying more space, but I wanted to clear up the space that I have from the live photos just to see a before and after of how much space is cleared up. And so I actually went through all of my photos and I watched the ones that I liked, and I turned off the live photo. I made them still photos, or no, I take that back. I turned off live photo. That's on the Mac app. You right click on it and you can turn off the live photos. So I do these in like as many that would fit on my screen in the application. And there were some that I knew, like, I don't have to look at this live photo to know that I don't really care about the live photo-ness of it. But there were quite a few with my children that I really did like to see the live photo-ness. And so I would watch those and see which ones I wanted to keep. So I went through the whole thing, turned off the live photoness, and I'm thinking in 30 days, the live photoness will drop because, when you delete something in iCloud, after 30 days, it's emptied from the deleted unless you go and manually delete it. But as I'm going through and working on these photos, I'm thinking, oh, there are some that are already turned off, and I haven't turned live photos off, like the live photoness of the live photo off in quite some time. And I'm like, So after I'm done with the whole thing, I'm thinking it's not going to turn off in 30 days. And so I'm going around looking to confirm that. And I finally found an article that was written and to confirm that indeed you turn live photo off, it's still a live photo because of, Apple's photo applications are all non-destructive editing. So this would be considered an edit instead of a change that you want to make. So since it's non-destructive, the live photo is always going to be a live photo. It's just not something that you can, like if I were to email it or send it as a text message, it won't be a live photo. So the way to do what I want to do is save them as still photos. There's an option where you can save each photo as a still photo. And all of the metadata remains, and that's great, including the date and the date state in order. But if you look in the recents section of photos, it will, when you save the the still photo, they'll be considered brand new photos in the recents. I think it's an album. It's an album that can't be deleted. And so that is now what's preventing me from actually doing this because it's going to mess up my recents.
On average, how much space do you think you would get back from each photo?
Well, at this point, that's kind of what I was interested in finding out. I don't know. Like if it bought me like one iPhone backup, I wouldn't feel like it was a waste of time because I kind of want to just see what it does. But I think it might be a little more significant than that. But I'm more interested in finding out how, to what degree I'll be able to save it. So, or how much space it will save.
Are you using the high efficiency format for image capture, or are you using the most compatible option?
I don't know.
On the phone and settings, if you go to camera, you can look at formats. And I don't recall if it was something that I manually changed or if at some point it became the new default. But I changed mine to the high efficiency format, specifically to try to lower the need on storage capacity.
Yeah, I actually have high efficiency. I don't know. What am I going to get with most compatible?
Honestly, I don't know. I think it's just an increased file size slightly. I think high efficiency just compresses the image a bit more. I don't know the full details. It was just one of those things that I remember it being mentioned, and I went ahead and turned on high efficiency because I'm sharing, across to devices that understand it anyway. So.
It actually says right here, to reduce file size, capture photos and videos in the high efficiency HEIF/HEVC format. Most compatible will always use JPEG and H.264, 4K at 60 frames per second, 1080 at 240, and HDR video require high efficiency. Oh, HDR video requires high efficiency.
Yeah, I'm sure that is driven mostly from a need to constrain file sizes.
Interesting.
My understanding on the way it works is if you share it with a device that doesn't understand that format, it will convert it or transcode it on the fly into the format needed for that device to understand. It's not a direct answer or solution to what you're talking about, though, because if you capture a live photo, you're still capturing more data than you would capture if you were just capturing the single frame. And so I would imagine, I'm just going to ballpark numbers in my head because I don't know these off the top of my head, but let's just say live photos average 10 meg, and if you were to change that to capture a still image and not a live photo, I would expect that to drop significantly to 2 to 3 meg at maybe a conservative estimate. So it certainly would be noticeable if you were not using live photos. But at the time of capture, I feel like live photos are beneficial.
Yeah. I mostly want to take live photos because, especially with kids, it's sometimes before and after the picture's taken, something cool happens, especially if you're doing candid photos. So that's why I've always kept live photos on. But if it was going to be easy like this, I thought I would do it. But because it's going to mess up my Recents album, it's probably something I won't do. And I'm not sure if I like that behavior or not.
Which behavior?
The live photoness of photos not dropping off after 30 days. I'm not sure if I like it or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it because I can also think through if I make a mistake with a photo, do I really want an inability to recover it if I realize the mistake, 6 months later? Like I get erring on the side of caution there.
Yeah. So
especially when you think of it as, when you capture the image, you're writing it to a file, and the whole concept of non-destructive editing lets you always recover the original file.
Yeah.
If you want to modify the original file, there are ways to do so, and that's fine, but the average end user doesn't understand that concept, I would think. And so you would want to err on the side of you can recover your edits. And if you want to do something to the raw file, you need to know more about what you're doing so that you know that you cannot recover it after the fact.
Yeah, and there'd be a dialogue that pops up that someone might just blow through. So I think it's like you run out of space. People are used to running out of space, especially on Apple devices before iCloud, when they wouldn't update the internal storage or the base internal storage above 16 gigabytes for the longest time. So Apple users are used to that. I don't think it's that they don't understand. I just don't think anyone ever thinks about it or it occurs to them that this is what's going. This is what the consequences of doing this thing. So, now that I think about it a bit more, talk it out, it's like I think they went the right decision. It's an edit to that photo. It's non-destructive editing. It doesn't go away. You have to create a new file for it to slim it down. So makes sense to me.
And I thought that they made a change where if you're using iCloud Photo Library, that doesn't count against your storage capacity for backups and everything else in iCloud. Am I just horribly mistaken there?
I don't know how it wouldn't count because it's just a file size. I'm not sure. I think it's there is something with photos that doesn't count against your storage, but I don't think it's this. But I think you just created some follow-up for yourself.
Yeah, that's one I don't necessarily mind following up on because it would be good to know. I haven't wanted for storage in quite a while because we very quickly, with establishing a family group and having multiple devices, ran out of the free tier of storage anyway. And so I've paid for extra storage longer than I care to admit, probably. But it hasn't been a concern at all as a result. And I am nowhere close to having to worry about iCloud storage at this point, even with maintaining massive photo libraries across multiple users and multiple devices.
Neither am I. Not until, for a long time on 16. I had a system down. Like I had 16 gig phones. Like I had the entry level storage phones, 16 gigabytes, and I think I even at one point had a 32, and then a 30. One of my iPhones was a 32 gigabyte one. Paid the $100 more to go to that level of storage, and then the one I think that was the iPhone 4. And then when I went to the iPhone 5, I went down to 16. Like I purposely went down, and it was when there was iTunes in the cloud. I think that was the feature. So I got iTunes in the cloud, so all my music was in the cloud. So whenever I wanted to listen to something, I could stream it or download it. So I never stopped syncing music to my phone. And very methodically, at the end of the month, I would take all of the pictures off my phone and import them into iPhoto, because I stayed on iPhoto as long as I could, or until there were certain features I wanted in Photos before I stopped using iPhoto. And it was not long after I switched to Photos that iPhoto stopped working. At least I think it stopped working. I've just managed pictures well. But 4 years ago, I started paying for a little extra storage, and I haven't had to think about storage on the 200 gigabyte tier for at least 4 years. So going from 200 gigabytes to 2 terabytes, I mean, it's gonna be nothing. That's like I'm not gonna be thinking about storage again. I'm actually gonna put more of my stuff into storage, or into.
Yeah, I've actually been working through that project over the past week or so with not so much necessarily adding a lot into iCloud storage, but some things that I realized I had not pulled in that I wanted easier access to, because I do maintain 2 separate libraries. I maintain the iCloud library and then my Lightroom library, and the Lightroom library is backed up to both Backblaze and a local copy to Synology unit. And I don't have a reason to merge everything between the two, and I don't really have a desire to do so. But I did have a handful of things that, like trips or things that were a mixture of photos, where I obviously had the iPhone-related photos in iCloud Photos, but I didn't have my Canon photos in there, and I've started adding those in to different albums and resorting albums and actually using albums in iCloud Photos. And I think I have it mostly done. Now I have to decide whether I want to group some of those in folders or leave it the few hundred albums. That's exaggeration, but scrolling through a list of albums can be cumbersome when you're looking for something, even though I named them in a way that makes it a lot easier to manage. That's one of the things that I still feel like the Photos app is very lackluster with, as opposed to Aperture, which is what I would really love to still use and sadly cannot. And so I migrated to Lightroom, years ago at this point. And I actually ran Lightroom and Aperture side by side for a long time as well. So it wasn't a difficult move, but the difference in structuring your library organization, there were very different philosophies between the two. And so when I finally got Lightroom working in a way that I liked and enjoyed, I don't really like going back and forth between that and the Photos sorting structure or organization structure. But there's just not a better way. And so, and for me, the easiest thing has been, all right, I'll just keep them completely separate. If I want, any of the photos from my Canon, I'll just pull up the Lightroom app. And if I want any of the photos from the phone, I'll just pull up the Photos app. And now that I have the space to play with it, I've started merging some of those just to make it easier to find specific photos without feeling like I'm losing a clear delineation in my head about where I need to go for a photo.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I organize photos in iPhoto the way Photos, more or less the way Photos organize photos now. I love geotagging because, it's real easy to narrow down. Like, I know that I was here when I took this picture if, you're not at home where most of the pictures are taken. But the thing that I organize my iPhoto library by month, all of the pictures that I took in December of 2020 would have been an iPhoto event, and it was real easy for me to do that. And I actually used image capture. I'd use image capture to get the pictures off of my phone, and then I would import from the files in the file system in Finder from into iPhoto. So I did extra work, but it was At this point, it's been so long, I don't remember why I was doing it this way, but I liked doing it that way for some reason. I just didn't like I didn't like the interface for importing photos in iPhoto. There's a lot more control you had over importing if you used image capture. And so I organized my photos basically by date, because I was really good at remembering when I took a photo. I have a good mental timeline. And so once Photos was organizing photos in a way that I liked, I was able to move from iPhoto to Photos, and it's actually less work for me now because I just take a picture and I don't have to import, through the benefits of iCloud. It's on all my devices and I'm good to go.
Yeah, once support for aperture was discontinued, in order to easily find devices, I finally had to sit down and create a tag structure in Lightroom. And you can do it, you could kind of mimic the event structure with collections, and there are ways around it, but I decided instead I would just embrace the way Adobe designed Lightroom to be used. And so I use collections to give me quick access to types of photos, or maybe specific events, or like if I do an actual photo shoot, then I put the date and location of the shoot, and I put that under a folder with the name of the subject. And so if I do multiple shoots with a subject, like multiple shoots of family, then I would have a family folder and then the date and location of each of those shoots up underneath it. And so it's real easy to find what I'm looking for. But for everything that's kind of random or one-off, or if I wanted to look for everything I've done in a certain style of photography, tags make a world of difference. And once I adopted that and got used to finding things with tags, it's been difficult to break that. And so that's the main area that Photos kind of falls flat for me now.
That makes sense. My photo taking has not been that sophisticated, so it's just like, oh, I want to look at all the panoramas that I've taken. Piece of cake. So,
well, and that's why it's been easy for me to keep two different libraries, one for the big camera, so to speak, and one for the phone, because the native sorting and finding of photos works really well for anything that you've taken off the phone. And where it makes it a lot more difficult, if you import photos from like the Canon, you have to manually do a lot of different things to easily identify that later, either by manually sorting it into an event, or you get what metadata is available, so you can do some things based on that. But like my phone has no GPS camera has no GPS capability. So if I want location data, I have to manually add that. And that's where tags have been just a time saver, because each time I shoot at a location, I create a tag for it. And if I reuse that location, then I can just add it to that tag, and then I can see historically everything that I've ever shot at that location.
Yeah, I use my SLR so infrequently that when I do take photos somewhere, it'll get I'll take a whole batch of photos and give it a sort of like city level geotag in Photos, and just sort of not worry about it. That's enough, because it doesn't have a way to add coordinates. It's adding it in the application is good enough for me, especially since I use it so infrequently. If I was a photographer that used an SLR on a regular basis, I'd look into either buying a body with a GPS or getting an attachment to have those in the metadata of the photos, just because it would be too cumbersome to add that to so many photos.
Yeah, I think if I didn't have the workflow kind of workaround that I do with Lightroom, I would be looking at doing something similar. I know what I will normally do wherever I shoot is I'll take a quick picture or two with the phone to have the GPS coordinates so that I can relate that to other photos. but I find I never go back and do so. The tags work well enough that as long as I continue to use Lightroom, it's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, I used to do that as well, where I did that briefly for that reason, and it just turned out like it was good enough for me to just say this picture was taken in this town and be done with it. Again, not that many photos.
Well, now that we've killed the photo discussion and made it probably 3 times longer than what you had in mind,
yeah.
How about we segue into what I consider the primary topic for the evening, if you want to kind of take it and run with it.
Yeah. So the reason I decided to, you and I had talked about this a bit already, and I wasn't ready to share this because initially I was thinking I want to have already been successful at it before I share this project. And I think it's mostly because I found out that I love this project. Like I'm going to say we, because I feel like you're a part of this project, and I'm already enjoying it so much that I think I don't need to wait. And I think there'd be benefits of going ahead and starting. And so that I'm not sounding like, so that this conversation, or so what I'm saying is not out of context. The project is that I want to create a YouTube channel that documents bouldering and rock climbing as a primary motivation for weight loss for me. And it's the thing that's, weight loss stories are really compelling, whether somebody just decided to go to the gym and was motivated to lose weight and stay there. That's a compelling story. There's a YouTube channel called The Second Chance Hiker, and it's a guy who started hiking long distance trails in the United States as a way to lose weight, and it's very compelling. He was inspired, motivated, got out and did something. And my friend Ellery just started climbing, bouldering, and he really got into it. And he's like, you should climb. And I've wanted to be a climber since, I was a young adult. And my kids are great climbers. They're 8 and 9 years old. And I used to take them, or pre-pandemic, I would take them to the climbing gym maybe twice a month. And they'd stay in there for hours and climb until it was time to go. And until I was it was not uncommon for us to be in there for 3 hours. And I was bored. Well, I would take music and listen to podcasts, but for all intents and purposes, I was not getting anything that I wanted to do. I wasn't being productive in certain sense. It was great because they were always tired and they went to bed super easy and slept great that night. So it did have its benefits, even though I was kind of just hanging out for 3 hours catching up on podcasts. And I always, for years I've wanted to climb with them, and they'd ask me to climb, and I tried, and I wasn't comfortable. And I always thought, I was like, I need to lose some weight, and then I can be a climber. And a friend of mine in Colorado would always say, climbing is a great way to lose weight. And so I knew that you were into climbing, and I knew that you'd had some desire to do that. And so and through the course of talking to you about it, I sort of have, I don't want to say accountability partners, because that's not what it is, but I have people that are enthusiastic enough, and I'm enthusiastic enough that it's sort of a thing where it's like, this is how I want to spend my time, my free time. And I've got you and Ellery that are just as enthusiastic, and that's how you want to spend your free time when possible. That I've got climbing partners to go with, and not that I can't climb on my own, but it's good to go with a partner, because it's good to have a spotter and so forth. So, I decided, I recently had the idea of failing reframed as, well, you got out there and you did it, so it's not a failure. It's either it's gonna work for you or it's not gonna work for you. And if it doesn't work for you, it's not a failure. And I was like, kind of changed my mind. And because I want to make this a YouTube channel thing, I think that doing it, I guess putting my feet to the fire, and not having like 6 episodes in the can just ready to release on a weekly schedule will give something that's really important, and that's audience participation. If I'm showing videos that were recorded in late December, early January, sometime in late March or early April, it's not, that time gap isn't going to be, I feel like there might be some negative ramification to that, because it could prevent viewers from getting invested in it because, oh, he's already done this. This part is done. And so that's why I was thinking maybe I should, actually start and put it out there.
It's interesting. I didn't think about the time gapped piece. For me, one of the big things that makes it appealing is, one, I get to play with being creative behind the camera again, in ways that I haven't been able to do in a while. And historically, I've done different types of climbing in very short spurts in different places, off and on, for a while. Like I wouldn't say that I am anything beyond a beginner by any means at all. But the part that always made it kind of fall flat and stop was the lack of an enthusiastic climbing partner that could get out there with any type of regular availability. I would either not know anybody and just be going and seeing if I could do whatever I could do solo, or a couple of times my brother and I would finally link up and go try to do something without any guidance or instruction. And it doesn't work out too well when you don't really know what you're doing and you're trying to top rope.
Yeah. The stakes are high.
Yeah, very much so. But bouldering, on the other hand, has always been something that is accessible, just I never really paid a lot of attention to it. It wasn't my introduction to the climbing world. My introduction was, was top roping and rappelling, and that moved into the gym environment pretty quickly, and then didn't really get outside to attempt anything else for a long time. And so I, of course, latched onto the idea pretty quickly because, one, I've spent the better part of 2020 getting myself into shape through various methods. And one of the things that I wanted to do this year was to get back to kind of a general thing that I used to do pretty regularly, which is pick something and just wholeheartedly dive in and see where it goes on a yearly basis. And that was how I elected to attempt scuba diving, and I went pretty in depth with that one for a couple of years before I relocated and no longer had easy access to diving partners, and that just kind of eventually fell to the wayside. But climbing has been one of those things that has been on the list and has been at least attempted in some fashion repeatedly, and I never really had the I'm going to call it a support structure to go very far with it. And so knowing the end game and the goals, and the fact that we would both be learning as we go anyway, that kind of common ground of, I don't really know how to do this, let's figure it out together kind of partnership makes it appealing. And you couple that with, I would say that I'm in probably the best shape I've been in since high school, if not even better. It gives me the flexibility to play with the creative side of being able to capture some of those things for you, which makes it interesting.
Totally. It's this sort of coincides with, for me, it's sort of a similar thing. Like I might be in the worst, I don't know that I'm in the worst shape of my life, but this pandemic is definitely, or I've definitely not, I've not been able to take advantage of certain free time just because I feel stuck at home. And and I haven't had the motivation to work on a home workout. I haven't had the desire to do that. And this year I'll turn 40 years old, and time is not on my side. I'm still relatively young, and I still think I have youth on my side, but time definitely isn't. And I need to make healthier choices so that, one, my longevity is important, but even more important, that quality of life. And I for the past 5 years, I've said I'm way too active to, I live too active a lifestyle to be this unfit. And the thing that's, I think, makes climbing so much different than hiking or paddling is that it doesn't have to be an all-day event to feel like you've accomplished something. You can go out for an hour or an hour and a half and feel like you've had a huge accomplishment. That small time commitment is equal to being it's like being in a gym. So there's that, and it's something that's new, and it has an interesting mental aspect to it, where you're having to sort out problems as you're moving yourself through space, the physical space that you occupy, and you're having to put in a lot of mental effort to do that correctly, or do it in the correct way. So that's also something I think that makes it different than lifting weights or running. I love lifting weights, but this has been different. And so, because this is interesting, it's a motivation to, on the days that I don't climb, it's motivation to work on my at-home workout. It's motivation to eat healthier. It's motivation to do all these things that I want to do that I haven't been motivated to do. So I'm pretty excited about that.
It's interesting how, like, the end goal, the end idea, the end kind of product can align so well with multiple people, but the motivations and the journey are so different in different ways. And what I mean by that, for me, the appeal for climbing has always been the risk factor. I love the adrenaline rush. I love the idea that I have to be careful because there are serious life-altering consequences if I'm not. And I don't have that with other general pursuits. Well, I guess you could go back and say scuba diving was also that way. And for the couple of years that I rode a motorcycle, you kind of get a sense over the course of time that I have a bit of an affinity for adrenaline rushes anyway. But I wouldn't say that I'm a thrill seeker in general. I count those slightly differently. But that is something that is interesting as a motivator, because I can't stand working out. I really can't. It's been a testament to just my sheer stubbornness to beat my body into submission over the course of 2020 and not give myself any rest day, no matter how bad I feel or whether I want to do it or not, because my motivation wasn't related to the workout at all. It was, I've already hit 40. I'll be 42 this year. And I'm not getting any younger, obviously. And there's a large enough age gap between me and my son that if I didn't do something, I was not going to be in a good shape when he wants to be active.
Right.
And that was really kind of the primary motivator for me. And it came to the forefront with the pandemic because I think we've talked about it on the show, maybe not. Like, my mentality is that, vaccine or not, the likelihood of me contracting COVID, even with all the precautions in the world, I consider it a given. Like, I need to live my life in a way where I assume I am going to get it. I'm still going to take every single precaution I can, but I need to assume that I'm going to at some point be around somebody who doesn't and is going to transmit it to me just because of the nature of the world that we live in, unfortunately. And So my secondary motivation, which was pretty close in if you were to rank them by priority, my secondary motivation was, if I am going to contract COVID, I need to give myself the best possible chance of a positive outcome. Because prior to 2020, I had put on the extra weight. I did have issues with blood pressure, and I have since erased all of those. I have no maintenance medications or anything that I have to worry about. Positive gains in general there, and that alone has been worth its weight in gold for me personally. So climbing is a way for me to take everything that I've done over the course of the pandemic year and say, okay, I know without a doubt now that anything I put my mind to, I will eventually find a way to accomplish. And I've wanted to climb for, long time. It's time to figure this out. It's time to maybe not become, the best climber in the world, of course, by any means, but to be able to hold my own with anybody that might go out to one of the climbing spots locally. It's time to finally figure out this gap. And so having someone that wants to figure it out anyway, it's the icing on the cake. I know we've kind of danced around the idea of the accountability piece because it's not what it is. It's enthusiasm in a group breeds more enthusiasm, and you really get that sense of camaraderie and that desire to get out there among other people because you have that shared interest, shared passion, and that makes a huge difference in trying to figure out something new.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the word camaraderie. I think it's camaraderie. It's not accountability is when you are beholden to somebody who's outside of the thing. And this is not. That's why I've not wanted to call it accountability. I just couldn't think of the right word, and I think you hit the nail on the head with camaraderie. So because I'm not accountable to you. I just know that you want to do this, and I want to do this, and we're just going to sort out a time where we can meet and do it together on a regular basis. So I think whereas accountability kind of has not a negative connotation, but it doesn't feel like there's any fun in accountability where there is fun and passion in camaraderie.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that, I think that is kind of overlooked maybe in the discussion, but I think we both recognize it, is that we're out there to not necessarily see who performs better either. It's, if we climb the same thing, we climb the same thing, and if we climb it in different ways, there can be different skill levels without it being something that feels exclusive, I guess is a good way to put it. And it's interesting that that's not always the case, but it feels like, at least from a bouldering perspective, there may be a route or a particular climb or problem that one may do, one may not, but within the same, 10 feet, there's going to be another climb that is doable. And the ability to feel that sense of accomplishment and not feel like you're comparing yourself, I think makes is a big part of it as well.
Yeah, I agree. And, getting out there, so far, every time I've gone out, I've gone out there a few times with Ellery. We went out there yesterday, and it was just very like, the whole thing is like, where, to take the term from hiking, hike your own hike, it's climb your own climb. The encouragement is for you to do the thing that you are trying to do. It's not, there's no encouragement to be better or go harder. Like, that comes from within, and there's just the encouragement to do the thing that you're trying to do. So I really like that about you guys and everybody I seemingly come in contact with who climb. It's like, do what you can, climb your own climb.
That may also be a little bit of a difference between the general community here and a couple of places that I've climbed in the past. It's like there have been a couple of climbs that were attempted where a group of people would combine. You would feel very judged, I guess is a good way to put it. As you're trying to learn something and figure it out, and you have a group of people who are obviously experienced climbers come, and you can hear them making comments even though you don't know what they're saying. And this is related to top roping. So there's enough of a distance that there's just no way to hear them if they weren't yelling, down to you. But the general feeling was one of judgment. Whereas so far, everyone I've encountered that has been bouldering really could care less. It's more someone might come up and say, hey, have you tried or thought of trying something like this? Or if nothing, they'll just walk up, say hey, and keep going. There's just no feeling like they're watching and waiting to see what you do.
Yeah, I feel like a good way to describe the folks that I've seen out there is just really chill. Like, no pretense, just people just have just like a really chilled attitude. You don't want to get in people's way, so there's an etiquette and so forth, but everyone seems really chill about it. So I'm looking forward to our next outing. So the other aspect of this project that's going to scratch an itch that I've had for a while is like having video content to edit and video content to edit to share with YouTube, like the YouTube audience. And I'm really sort of excited about that. I watch a lot of YouTube channels. I watch a lot of hiking, and there's not a lot of paddling I actually watch on YouTube, but a lot of hiking that I watch on YouTube, and a lot of bushcraft I watch on YouTube. I think I've mentioned that before, and it's I feel like I'm gonna be able to put something out there, and I know there's gonna be like I don't know, it's not gonna be all sunshine and rainbows, but it's gonna feel good to be creative in that way. I remember the job that I have now, like my work. I remember going from Apple to Motorola. It's gotten really, it satisfied an itch I'd had for a long time to do something with computers in a very different aspect than being a technician. And I think this channel will do that for me in a creative way.
So I have a small little side confession to make. I've never been all that interested in doing much of anything on YouTube. I mean, I've published a couple of things, just random interests at the time. Nothing cohesive, nothing coherent. But this has me thinking I might do a complimentary handful of videos. I don't intend to do anything overly big, but it reminds me of my initial falling in love with videography and everything decades ago at this point that led to my transition to photography. There's a sudden desire to play with cinematography again that I haven't felt in a really, really long time. And I have a feeling that's going to lead to me deciding I want to share a couple of those things. I certainly have no desire to shift to running a channel and having things consistently. But it would not surprise me for at some point me to add a couple of things that might be complementary to what you're describing going forward.
Oh, that that's awesome. I think that'd be great. It actually reminds me of there's a channel that I follow or subscribe to. It's called Syntax 77, but syntax is spelled Sintax. And there's a video out there where he explains how he got that name, but I'm assuming the 77 is his birth year. But he's got these pretty in-depth hiking videos. Like he'll go out. He's got a lot of solo trips that he does, and he goes hikes, and each video is like an hour long for like a 2 or 3 day trip, and he talks to the camera, and it's a good channel if you want to, if you're interested enough in hiking. It's a good channel for that. He goes to a lot of really cool places, and occasionally he will go hiking with a friend of his, and his friend has a channel. I think his friend's channel is Trail Killer, and there's I know I've seen the video where they explain where that name comes from, but there are a few videos that are from the same trip, but his perspective, and it's pretty cool. I know, like the one that comes to mind is a camping trip that they did in Vermont. They camped in an abandoned Cold War era. I believe it's an Air Force base. And it's been abandoned for decades, and they camped out there, and they did it for Halloween. And, they kind of, Syntax 77 wanted to make it spooky. So he did it in black and white. And I don't remember what kind of camera he was mimicking, but it's kind of like an older camera. It had a Twilight Zone vibe to it. And then his buddy, Trail Killer, has a video on his channel from the same trip, and it's all in color, and it's kind of cool to like that one. There's such a stark contrast between the two because one's in color, one's in black and white, and so forth. It was really cool to see the complimentary video in color and just kind of give you a different perspective on the same trip, and that was a lot of fun. And so I think that would be so cool to have. It would just add to the depth, and not that everyone's going to appreciate it, but sometimes we put things out in the world because we want them out there because we appreciate them, and if we happen to find the other people that do appreciate them, it's that much better.
Well, I think you could go back to this podcast being a good example of that.
I was thinking that when I was saying it. Yeah, so I like your idea of the trailer, doing a trailer for it.
I was going to say that was kind of a good segue into a number of different topics around that I started thinking through, and none of them are fleshed out in any way. It was just, you know what, if you're ready to at least start the story, why not give an idea of what the story is going to be? And I haven't put together a trailer in, I've never put together a trailer. I put together music videos in the past, and that was fun. And I feel like they're kind of similar in trying to tell a story in different ways. But I can just imagine a number of different things that, even if it's just a teaser for getting ready to start the journey, kind of like some of the shots that were in the advertisement that you shared, even if it's just kind of mundane things leading up to just putting a hand on a rock wall, nothing that even shows climbing. Like you could do a lot in the build up to that and just get people excited. And I can think of a number of ways to try to do that sound fun, at least in my head. And so that's what prompted me to put that in the notes. Is, you know what, if you're ready to really put it out there, like, what do you think of a precursor, or something to give an idea of what to expect? And we could easily probably fill more than enough footage in a part of a day to put something together.
Oh yeah, I think it's a good idea. We've all, our society is certainly accustomed to having that. Here's a thing, and here's the short version of the thing. Do you think you'll like the thing? Well, or it's like you should. Here's more of the. Here's a condensed version of a thing that we think that we want you to like. We think you're gonna like, and so yeah, I think it's a great idea. It allows for a different feel and vibe to a project. Like it fleshes out a different aspect of a project when you have a different kind of video. Like a trailer is very different than the beginning of a series. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. I like the idea. I love that ad because that ad feels like it could be a trailer to something. I mean, I guess the ad is designed. So I guess it's not quite so out of context, but there's an ad that I like from a company called Puka Travel, and they specialize in Norwegian vacations. And the reason I like the ad so much is because of the dialogue or the monologue. The monologue is Alan Watts. Are you familiar with Alan Watts?
I know I've heard the name, but I don't know why I've heard the name.
He was a modern-day philosopher. I think he lived entirely in the 20th century. I believe his adult career began as an Anglican priest, and he renounced his faith, and I think he was basically a Buddhist philosopher in the Eastern world or the Western world, or really presented Eastern philosophies to the Western world. One of the first folks to do that. He's got a really good speaking voice. He's got an interesting English accent, but I think all Americans say that all English accents are interesting. Anyway, he's a guy that I've had heard about in my early adult, late teens, early 20s from a friend of mine who was studying philosophy, and he's someone that he's such an entertaining speaker. He's someone I've come to enjoy listening to. And then that bit of dialogue, I think it's fairly well known, but I had not heard it until I saw that ad. And I have no idea what brought me to that ad. But I remember seeing that ad and hearing his voice, and I was like, it's Alan Watts. And I just love the bit that he's talking about. I think it's so cool but I know that I've heard it in multiple places. I know that you can listen to it on iTunes Music and Spotify, so it's out there in that form. I don't know. Do you use YouTube DL?
I haven't, just because I haven't had a reason to, but I know it exists. I know of different ways to get that. So
yeah, I mean, I back in the day, I used to use like these horrible websites that you could put in a URL and then it would basically download give you a link to download, and you had to see the ads. And then I discovered YouTube DL, and it's like, oh, I love it. YouTube DL is a tool that I love, as well as FFmpeg, which is further support that I'm the Casey Liss of this show.
I don't know. I have a feeling there's a number of intertwining aspects there, like listening to some of his discussion about photos. I have a feeling my workflow
yes.
might put me in that category a little bit too.
Yeah. So yeah, I think a trailer would be really cool, and I think at this point, I guess I wouldn't want to use that audio in a trailer because that's already used somewhere else. But I just like the idea of the dream idea. Yeah, you get a chance to dream long enough that you dream your real life, and if you're going to dream your real life, you should make your real life a great life. And we probably already thought, oh, we should make our great life a great life anyway. Something about living a life of desperation. I don't know. Doesn't sound that doesn't sound pleasant.
No, I think it would have more of an impact if you found something that was more applicable to your motivations and did the voiceover yourself anyway.
Oh yeah. I think that's a good idea.
I was thinking, I'm not entirely sure if I have a large repository of random, I wouldn't say monologues, but snippets that might be applicable. But I'm sure there's plenty out there where it'd be easy enough to find something.
Yeah. That one, the one that I like, I just like that idea, but that does not lend itself to this particular project. I mean, you could vaguely put it there, but it's not quite what I want. So,
thinking about it, I wonder if some of my older writings might not have something applicable as well. That might be something I go back and look at.
That would be cool.
So, because it's no longer publicly available, I'll give a little bit of backstory. Prior to a number of different incarnations of my website, I did at one point have a weblog up that I would write all sorts of random things to, and I tend to write in a very theoretical, imagery-laden style when I'm just exploring concepts and not trying to present, information. Or if I'm a better way to put it is, for a long time there when I wrote strictly for the enjoyment it brought me to explore feelings and ideas without putting those things into writing, but instead leveraging other mechanisms and using allegory, etc. And so it lent itself to some interesting writings over time. None of that is, some of it might still be publicly available in the current incarnation of my site, but I know a number of those have been lost as far as being publicly available. But I, of course, being me, have an archive of all of those things anyway. Mm-hmm. So I may go back and look and see if anything at least provides a starting point that seems like it might fit. Because I do remember using climbing as a illustrative piece to explore a couple of different feelings back during a relatively, I'll say, dark period, just to put it mildly. Mm-hmm. And but I didn't write it from a place of darkness. I wrote it from a place of hope and struggle, and it seems like it might be fitting.
Yeah. It when you say hope, like a place of darkness, but hope, it kind of makes one. I think having an original, an original writing from you would be really cool because it makes it that much more personal. But that kind of made me think of. Don't remember the exact line, but I remember some interesting lines being said in. The Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, in the Mines of Moria. I felt like Gandalf said some things like that to Frodo, and that's way too dramatic for something like this. But I think finding some writings that are climbing related would be really cool to put in there.
I love that you mentioned Tolkien, just because. Well, I guess you didn't mention Tolkien, but you were talking about Tolkien.
It's Tolkien. I mean, some of that dialogue in those movies was Tolkien.
Well, I was just meaning you didn't actually say Tolkien.
Yeah,
but I love Tolkien in general. I always have, and what made me think about that was I've got another friend who is re-exploring health in general in a different way. And one of the things that was kind of interesting, I actually took a quote from Tolkien and sent to that person because of how well it related to what they were kind of dealing with at the time or struggling with. And it's not the specific place that you're talking about, but the portion that I used was the portion that talks about all that's gold does not glitter, and not all who wander are lost. And I won't read the whole thing, but that's the
quote I was thinking of.
Okay, I wasn't entirely sure, but that's what triggered the thought, and I've always loved that section anyway. But I love Tolkien for a number of different reasons, and yeah, you could randomly flip through the book and almost always find something applicable.
Mm-hmm. I love that quote, and I think there's a quote from Harry Potter that Dumbledore says, and if I couldn't remember, before I read Harry Potter or saw the movies, if you'd asked me, I would have thought actually that sounds like Gandalf. I'll see if I can find that.
I think I know what you're talking about. I certainly don't know it off the top of my head, but I haven't been that immersed into the world of wizardry. I have read all the books, I've seen all the movies, I've enjoyed them, but I see a lot of the correlations to what has come before, as everything does. I don't want to make that sound dismissive at all, but there are certain things that you feel like they're influenced by other things that came before them, and you get a sense that Dumbledore was influenced by Gandalf in some fashion, whether that was consciously or subconsciously or not. There's a strong enough parallel in a lot of their discourse that it's kind of hard to ignore.
Yeah, I think I feel that Dumbledore was heavily inspired by Gandalf, but I've never looked or confirmed that. Like, it's not been that interesting to me to confirm, but it's the feeling I get, and if it's nothing else, it's just it's a connection I make in my head.
Well, and if nothing else, it's a connection that most people around our age bracket would probably make if they were familiar with both stories anyway. So it may be kind of a byproduct of knowing the other works or being immersed in the other works, and there being some level of bias because of that. But it still feels like there's at least a significant enough influence that the idea was there.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, that long gray beard. But that's just a wizard thing. That's a wizard thing in general, I suppose. But the quote I was thinking about was, and as I read it, it feels slightly less Gandalf than I initially thought. But the quote is, "Happiness can be found in the darkest of times, if only one remembers to turn on the light."
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, it's like a modern day Gandalf.
Yeah, very much so. A shorter-winded Gandalf might be a good way to put it.
Yeah. Gandalf has always been my favorite character from The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
So I like Gandalf quite a bit, but my favorite character, the one I latched onto, was always Aragorn.
Yeah, I can see that.
The whole concept of not wanting an outcome or destiny or responsibility, but reluctantly accepting it because no one else could. That arc is what always appealed to me.
That right there is like, I think people can, recently came across some discussion about this, but that right there is like true example of an alpha male. Like being an alpha isn't being a boss. Being an alpha is leading when no one else will lead.
Were we the ones that had the discussion about alpha males recently? No. So, okay. No, I know who I'm thinking of. My brother and I had a discussion about alpha males and what the terminology meant, and how at some point it got warped into more the bro generation, or the kind of arrogant jock that just doesn't understand what's going on, just very kind of aggressive without necessarily trying to be aggressive.
Yes.
And he had never thought of it that way. And there's an 8-year gap between us, just to put it into context. And it spurred a discussion on whether that was a kind of generational understanding or misunderstanding, or if it had been misunderstood and misapplied for a while, and just his generation was not exposed to that in a way that forced that kind of stereotype into the head when you think of alpha male, or what. Because his idea of an alpha male was what it should be, which is what you were alluding to.
So, I mean, you and I are pretty close in age, and the over-aggressive jock is the idea that, that I had as alpha male until somebody said, no, that's not what alpha male is. And my girlfriend, who's 5 years younger than me, is, same thing. So I'm kind of curious where your brother got his correct idea from.
Yeah, no telling. I would like to say that our family tends to not necessarily follow in the footsteps of convention when it comes to exploring ideas, and tries to kind of figure things out for ourselves. But that is not a majority of our. That is not an explanation that would apply to a majority of our family. It's an explanation that would apply to my brother and I only, for the most part, or gotcha. So it seems. And I don't know. It may just be that he happened to be around slightly more progressive-minded people at the time that idea took form.
Yeah. I think we would be amiss to not talk about I was just thinking, like, climbing is, at least bouldering, is incredibly accessible. Like, I think of the types of climbing there is, it takes a lot of skill. I think like free climbing and free soloing might be a little more, but for different reasons. But it's sort of incredibly accessible because you just need a place to climb, and you don't even have to have shoes. But if you're going to have like one piece of equipment, shoes are that's the first thing that you get. And based on like our three-part series on camping and so forth, I think we'd be amiss not to just briefly talk about the shoes we're using.
Yeah, certainly. I have an extra little tidbit when we move past shoes into crash pads.
Oh yeah, crash pads. That too. So
yeah, those would be the two pieces of gear that I would say you would really want to consider. I think I would put the crash pad above the shoes as far as if you only have the funds to get one thing, look at safety first.
yeah, and if you want to climb a little bit higher than 5 feet,
yeah,
a
then
pad.
you're probably gonna really wish you had a crash pad if you
Yeah.
didn't and took a fall or a tumble.
Yeah, so I jumped in with a pair of shoes that was recommended by a friend of mine. Not just recommended, he also extended a discount that he has access to me, and I'm very grateful for it. And but I got a pair of La Sportiva Finale, and I'll say it makes a big difference. Like I could, I can tell it makes a big difference because I feel like my feet are, the stiffness of the sole is very good. The stickiness of the sole is very helpful, and being able, there's some toe holds that I wouldn't be able to get any of my street shoes in confidently and put weight on it and even just for a second to make a move. And so I really feel like the shoes are really helpful.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. I think the way I would phrase it is the shoes are a tool to make different placement of your foot accessible in a way that requires significantly more strength and confidence without the shoes. Because I wouldn't say that any of those toe holds or anything would be inaccessible or unusable without the shoe. It's just what would it take to use it without the shoe, right? And so in some cases that might be insane toe strength to be able to use a single toe to support your body weight, if that's even possible in that particular contortion, or jamming your foot into a crevice where you're going to shred your foot in the process if you're not wearing something that's semi-protective. So I definitely don't want to sound dismissive of the shoe because that's not what I'm meaning. But I do think the better way to understand a climbing shoe is to think of it as a tool that makes some of those less accessible footholds more universally accessible.
Oh yeah, I think considering it a tool is a really great way to think about it. I'm just thinking about if you want to, another tool that's very helpful is a hammer. I mean, you could beat on a nail with your hand, or an even harder part of your body like your forehead. It's it's not good, So you pick up a tool like a rock is way better than any body part, but still not as good as a hammer. This analogy is not very good, though.
No, I think it's actually quite apt because we kind of talked about it when we went yesterday, and I mentioned a pair of shoes that I was thinking I wanted to try climbing in just to see how it compared. And I won't go into the details of them until I do so, just because I don't want to put any false info out. But it's because I want to see how much better the climbing shoes do in certain scenarios, but I also want to see how accessible a non-climbing shoe that is designed to be a minimalist shoe might perform and feel comfortable for similar activities, just to be able to give that comparison. Because I do think a lot of the approach as a beginner can be done without the shoes and could make it more accessible, but I think you have to be very cognizant of where the line is on what you can do without a climbing shoe and not get too close or go over that line in a shoe that's not going to provide that same level of grip and stickiness that you're going to need for certain problems. I just don't think that we're going to encounter a problem that would not require, or that would absolutely, without a doubt, require a climbing shoe without any possible avenue for doing it without a climbing shoe for a while, just based on our respective skill levels. And so part of it is just to want to compare it so I know, okay, in the event that I don't have my shoes with me, but I find that I have time and I'm in the area, can I feel confident enough going by and, climbing a problem or two or spending 15, 20 minutes out there? Or should I just always keep my bag in the back of the Jeep? And of course, I know what I'm going to do anyway, but...
Yeah.
So I should mention the shoes that I used yesterday were the Black Diamond Momentum shoes. They're a neutral climbing shoe. They're not, meaning that they're not aggressively angled for any specific type of terrain. It's what you would think of as a entry level, not entirely sure what you're going to be climbing type of shoe. I do also have another pair on the way, and I was hoping they would be here before we climbed, and I decided I would go pick up the other pair before we climbed, because they were not going to be here, and because I was curious about them anyway, and wanted to see how they felt and how they compared to what I had used in the past. But the other pair that I have on the way are from 510, and I don't remember the model off the top of my head. I was trying to look it up real quick, and of course the phone locked, and then I have to reposition and everything else to...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like I have my microphone set up that where I have to like get everything ready and then like kind of lean to the side so I can keep my mouth talking at the microphone, but also see my computer screen.
Yeah, the shoe that I have on the way is the ASIM VCS, and it's a very similar in style shoe to Black Diamond's option, which is kind of why I wanted to compare them, meaning that it's Velcro enclosures instead of lace-up enclosure. The difference is the Black Diamond is a fabric upper. The 510 is a leather upper. And I wanted both options available because I just wanted to put my feet in different shoes again and see how they felt and figure out which I preferred, and having the option to actually leverage a extended return policy after even trying a shoe for a change made sense. So,
yeah, the REI return policy is like stellar. Like I think I mentioned that when I was talking about the shoes I use for hiking, and like it was kind of I had hiking boots, and then I was like, I don't want to get these trail runners if it's going to be the same result, and because I know that the infamous Wild Horse 4 has this, I get the same hot spot in those that I do in my hiking boots, and I'm just like, and then they're like, yeah, buy them, use them, you've got a year to return them, even if they're used. I'm like, what? And so, yeah, if you're unsure about a shoe and REI carries it, they are the way to go.
Yeah, and I know in the episode I had mentioned I didn't even realize that, and but that's what drove me to choose both of those shoes from them. And the Black Diamond ones they carry in the store local to us. The 510s were available online, and just the random delays with every courier that we are currently experiencing means they just have yet to arrive. So.
Yeah, I mean, the courier it's kind of wild right now, and it's like, yeah.
And that actually leads me to, I had mentioned that I had ordered a crash pad from a particular retailer, and then I finally got an estimated it'll ship in 16 to 25 days.
Oh yeah.
And that part I know is because the manufacturer just sold out of them. I mean, I think there was a big run on crash pads at the end of the year that where they were available, they just don't have any currently, and so they're all in back order. But not knowing if shipping gets squared away anytime soon, I was thinking, well, that means it's probably not going to be here before the end of the month, even in a best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And So today, actually, I looked and Mad Rock has their Mad Pad, not the Duo, basically the Duo without the extra features. They do have some of those in stock, so I ordered one of those today.
Oh, nice. Yes. It's funny, like I got the Duo based on the review on Outdoor Gear Lab list of reviews on crash pads for 2020, and I like it, and I actually didn't pay attention to all the features that it has, and then I was like, took it out, used it with my kids because it was it's actually their crash pad. Used it with them, and I gotta back up and tell this because I think it's amusing. They got it for Christmas. It's a joint gift for them from their grandmother. It's kind of, and because they've got so many avenues for gifts and toys and so forth, we just sort of wanted to pare it down, and my mom will give them, she'll give them something that they want, one thing they want, one thing they need, one thing to wear, and one thing to read. And this was the thing that they needed, and so when they opened it, and they're just like, they were so unimpressed. And they've gotten camping equipment from my mom before, and the last time they did, my mom was like, "Are you sure they're gonna like it?" "I know they're gonna like it." "Are you sure?" "Yep." And they get it, and they like were ecstatic about it. And then this, they're just like so unenthusiastic about it. But once I got them out on the rocks, loved it. They absolutely loved it. So it ended up being like something that they really like. So I've got out there and I was like, what is all this? Like after actually getting it and using it, I was like, what is all this stuff? And I had to go back and learn what all the features were and why it was there. And it like turns out, I'm glad I got that.
Yeah, I was actually struggling a bit on whether I would get that one and just keep searching until it was available, because one of the features is the ability to add or carry a second pad in the strap system easily. And I finally decided, well, I'm not going to carry two typically, because the only reason I would need two is if I was going out solo and really was concerned about having to move the pad around or anything. And I'm just not going to climb anything that difficult at the moment anyway, without a spotter. So if I'm going out solo, I just need one pad available. And so the Mad Pad made sense because I left my order in place for the R3. Because I think the idea of having the R3 available in joint climbing sessions makes a lot of sense. Especially knowing how some of the landscape and features at Moss Rock are, where there are places the flatter pad makes a lot of sense, and there are places that being able to kind of position one around the tree in addition to having one on the ground would make a lot of sense.
Yes.
And so I felt like if that one does finally come in stock and ship and get here, when I need it is going to be more coincide more with the time frame that it would arrive. Whereas if I'm wanting to do anything anytime soon, and I'm not going out there with you, if I happen to swing by solo, I don't have an option yet. And so I figured the Mad Pad was the better option to go with because of the interoperability between it and the other Mad Rock crash pads.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What color did you get?
I think they call it a royal blue with a charcoal shell.
Okay.
Whatever their blue color is with a charcoal shell, I remember that.
Yeah, I was looking at it and I was like, it's actually, the blue is actually sold out now.
I may have gotten the last one they had available.
Some of their other colors are available, but the blue is definitely sold out.
Oh no! Wait a minute. The black is what I ended up getting because the blue was sold out. I take that back. Okay. The blue is what attracted me to look at it, and then I couldn't select it. But black and orange I know were still available.
Yeah.
And I thought about the green because it was still available, but it looked a bit too bright for my tastes.
It's funny because I would have thought the same thing, but it turns out I actually really like the bright colors. It's kind of a target.
Yeah, I thought about that from the standpoint of it makes sense if you're, up above it and you're not entirely sure where you're going to land. Something dark probably isn't the best case or best use. But then I also thought from a perspective of just being able to carry and not have it be a target, like seeing it through the windows of the Jeep. I felt like green would stand out a bit more and potentially make somebody take note.
Yeah. Sadly, there was not. I'd actually. I kind of wish there were like neon colors. I'd love like a neon green or a neon yellow. I think that'd be fun. It's like I don't typically. I guess the idea came from seeing the organic pads. The organic pads are customizable and they can get these kind of like wild neon colors. And I kind of like that. And but that's not, the Duo only comes in one color. It's nice and bright, but it only comes in the one color. So I probably wouldn't have gotten something interesting. But having seen like the neon ones, I really like that. And I wish Mad Rock had more neon options. But
yeah, I looked at the simple pad predominantly because of the ratings the website had given. I was just going down the list looking to see what was in stock where, and really the only reason I didn't go that route was because if I know that I'm going to have the R3, that Velcro tab system that Mad Rock uses to be able to attach their different pads together, it just felt like, all right, if I'm going to leave that order in place and potentially ever use them together, I would rather know that I could keep them together without having to worry about them sliding or doing other odd, strange things if someone happens to walk or step or fall.
Totally. It's nice to be able to like sort of like put it together and use it. It would be nice to be able to move it as a single unit. And so there's a lot of benefit to that system there. So
yeah, and hopefully I'll get notification that it ships by the end of the week. And I don't know how quick they typically pack orders and ship them, but we'll see. If not, I may cancel that one, and who knows? Like, it's all up in the air.
Yeah, totally. I love that their standard shipping for one pad is $4.95.
Yeah, and that it doesn't increase exponentially. It's just $4.95 per pad.
Yeah, because it's like those are big, and it'd feel bad to have to pay like $30 to get that shipped to you.
Well, that was the other knock against Simple. Their pricing very clearly tries to steer you toward their site as far as you can buy like a ready to ship pre-made version in whatever colorways they have available at, I think it was $180, but it's $35 shipping.
Whew.
And then if you buy their pad elsewhere, it's $210. But it's whatever shipping that company has, which most of the time is not $35. So it ends up being about the same regardless of who you get it through. But if you are doing searches online and you're looking at prices, you're going to gravitate toward their site first. I mean, I get that it's kind of standard business practice, but it's also one of those things that just bugs me a little bit to see it done that way.
Yeah. It's, yeah, I agree. It's like the price doesn't matter to me. It's like, how many dollars am I paying you? Like to get it for me to have it in my possession, how many dollars am I paying? So if I'm gonna pay $210, it's like, who's gonna get it to me fastest? So
yeah, and that's kind of what I was doing with when I was searching for the R3, and the only retailer I could actually place an order through that didn't just say that it was back ordered, or sold out, was the one that I did. And so that's why I know that the time frame for estimated ship is because they're not technically in stock. They're awaiting replenishment. But I knew that going in. I knew that there was a very high likelihood of that being the case. And so I didn't mind going ahead and just securing one because the price was, I guess, a few bucks less than if I were to buy it directly from Mad Rock, but on par. Like it wasn't drastically different.
Right.
But it's one of those things that if I refresh the Mad Rock site and I see the R3 available, I'm just going to cancel the other order and I'm going to order it from them because it's the same basic price, and I would rather just go straight through the distributor. I don't think I have anything else on gear at this point. Not until we get further in, for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's about, on the same.
Well, I think that's a good spot to end the formal show.
Pause and go into the after show.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at untitled_hosts. Send us an email at untitled.hosts@gmail.com or follow the feed directly at the untitledpodcast.com. You can also find all sorts of ways to contact Jesse at jthart.com. Thank you for listening. That's a wrap.
All right, so
I had to pull up the after show so I could even see what the notes were.
So it's just should be just like a real quick thing, but I've noticed that, and 30 minutes, but like 30 minutes from now, we're like, yep, that was quick. I've noticed that I like to make games harder for myself by modifying the rules. And like I hadn't, I don't know, I'd not really ever paid attention to this, but the other day for Christmas, I'd got a game I got for my kids was Guess Who. And as an adult, watching my two boys play that game, it's interesting because they're not quite as focused on the things. They're not as efficient. They're not as efficient at guessing and eliminating the potential persons they're guessing for. I don't know what they're called, the people. But I guess for anyone who's not familiar with the game, there's, I can't remember if it's 16 or 20 different pictures of cartoon people, from the bust, like the bust sculpture up kind of portrait. I guess a portrait. So, and they all look different, and you have to eliminate. You have to find out which person your opponent has by asking them yes or no questions to eliminate them, and it's usually based on looks. And so, if two adults are playing, that's really, really easy. Like it's so easy that it's not really fun or challenging. So Becca and I were playing, and I had made the rule that you're not allowed to ask any questions about their physical appearance. So you have to ask questions that sort of like play on your expectations and perhaps prejudices and your opponent's thoughts and prejudices and so forth. And so you'll ask questions like, is your person's ethnic culture important to them? And so if the answer is no, the answer is going to be yes or no, and it's just like a really interesting and difficult way to play. One of the questions is one of the questions once was, is your character a slut? And it's just like, oh, I have to look at these characters and like, do I think like I'm judging these drawings and it like really exposes your own ideas of how you view people in the world. And it was really interesting and really fun.
That is interesting.
And I remember like, oh, I've done this with other games before. Like once I did this with Yahtzee, and we had to play Yahtzee in a way where, you have a scorecard, and you like roll the dice and you try to like, get the highest score. Well, I was like, okay, the rules of Yahtzee this time are that you have to do everything in order. So you're trying to roll for So the first item on the list and then the second item on the list. And that's really hard. And you end up with like a really bad score. But it's a different way to strategize. And then another one I did was bananagrams. I don't know if you've played bananagrams. It's kind of like freeform Scrabble.
Yeah,
and
we have it.
So I the modified rule was like making themes with the instead of just putting words out there, you have to have a theme.
I could see that being interesting.
Yeah, I actually ended up having a Soundgarden theme. Like I had sound and garden, and whole and black and spoon, and super and unknown. Like those were all the words I had. So,
yeah, not at all what I was thinking of when I read the note. I added a piece that was interesting that now is completely irrelevant. But ages ago, and I don't remember if this was in psychology, sociology, or criminology, unfortunately, because I've had enough schooling in each discipline to have it all kind of blur. But I remember coming across a study that was talking about how when it comes to games and frustration, boys are more likely to bend or change the rules to cope with that frustration, as opposed to girls typically being fairly strict rule followers. And I tried to kind of look for it quickly. I didn't spend a lot of time because I don't even remember what discipline or whether it was, how it was classified or anything else. I just the study, I remember standing out to me because I thought it was interesting that I remembered doing that kind of thing. Like when we played a game, we would just make up whatever set of rules we wanted to make up for that particular incarnation of the game, and it could very well change the very next time we play it, which could be immediately after we finish a round, And so I always felt like that was just a thing that we did. I never thought of it as a difference between genders, or that it could be a difference between genders. And that particular study pointed to it's actually a difference in cognitive development and the way each gender typically is predisposed to handling frustration in a game setting.
Interesting.
But no, the very much different from what you were describing. I was just thinking that it might also explain why I have no problems with any multiple variants of rule sets of games, regardless of where I go and who, how they're described and what the rules of the house are, so to speak.
Yeah.
Whereas I know a number of people that do have issue with that it's either the way they're accustomed to playing, or they want to read the rules and follow the printed rules that come with the game.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, obviously, like I'm not stuck on playing in the printed rules or the game creators' intentions, but I get that. You want a certain level of consistency. It's really interesting to play like classic games, or maybe games that were common for our generation, and find who does it just who has those slight variances. I always find that interesting.
Yeah, at this point, most of the games that I play tend to be card games.
Yeah, it's funny. I love this this idea of like anybody, especially playing like poker, but like I've started telling my kids, it's like, all right, if you had done that in the Old West or Vegas, you'd been shot by now. Really, it's the Old West. It's like if you had done that in the Old West, they would have shot you. Like I've been playing a game called Monopoly Deal. And it's Monopoly in card game form, and it's a really good game because it's like you can finish a game in like 15 minutes. It's very different from Monopoly in as far as like time, but length of time it takes to play. But it's a really fun game, and like, little kids can play pretty easily. And there's a very specific strategy that you can adopt, and my kids caught on really well. But like I've also been trying to teach them card etiquette, like dealing to the left, dealing one from the top to each player, not being careful to show like you're not trying to cheat, you're not some sort of mechanic here trying to pull a card out from underneath or whatever. And then also like the people that are being dealt to is like, don't touch your cards until the dealer's done dealing. Like let him finish. And anyway, it's been fun. And but now it's like, if you had done that, you'd have been shot in the Old West.
Yeah, not quite related, but I've recently developed a sudden fascination with playing cards in general. Are you familiar with the company Theory 11?
I am not.
They have a couple of different sets of cards that are themed. So, like, I've got 2 decks of Star Wars themed cards. One quote unquote light side, one quote unquote dark side. They just developed, it's available for pre-order, a Mandalorian themed set of cards.
Are those the ones that are all black?
I think they do make an all-black set in a more traditional style, because they also make, like, I've got a set that they call Monarch, which is just a more regal-looking, kind of inspired back. It's not specific to anything in particular. But they also are a purveyor of magic tricks.
Oh,
and,
cool.
So if you think about wanting to have a good quality deck of cards to be a part of a showcase, I mean, I think that's where they kind of started doing the card business in conjunction with the magic tricks. I don't know that for sure. That's just, it makes sense to me. But they also have a Bond-inspired deck of cards. And so I have the Star Wars cards. I've ordered the Bond decks. I have no clue when they'll be here. And I pre-ordered the Mandalorian deck because, of course, why wouldn't I? If I already have the others.
Yeah.
But I also have a set of decks that are photography inspired. They're not by Theory 11. They were done as a Kickstarter campaign. But what caught my eye about them is they're completely a deck of playing cards, but on the cards are also different things to know from a photography perspective. And so you might have a card that gives you some idea about depth of field, or what aperture means, or very concise little like tidbits that you could actually put it in a camera bag and have it be both a deck of playing cards and a reference of sorts. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was a really neat take on it. And so I have those as well. And of course I have 2 or 3 different random decks of just general off-the-shelf playing cards anyway. But the stuff from Theory 11 is what has caught my eye recently, and I've been eyeing a couple of additional sets, and now I need to come up with some reason to play cards more.
I've been looking. I went to their website while you were talking, and I was looking at them. They're nice looking cards. What materials are they made of? Are they the typical paper that are like wax or whatever, coated paper, or are they?
Yeah, the ones that I have I think they have a deck that has like a foil embossed backing or something like that. I don't remember for sure if they do, but all of the ones that I have are your typical like PVC style sheet material.
Mm-hmm. Maybe like 16, 17 years ago, maybe longer than that. I spent a fair amount of money on Chem cards. Have you heard of Chem cards?
No, I don't think so.
It's KEM, and they make cards that are 100% plastic, and they're my favorite playing cards. I actually got them. I got the exact set of cards that are used in the movie Rounders. Like I got they use Chem cards in Rounders and in the sort of the main games, and I got 2 decks of those. Came as a double pack, and I really enjoy using those cards. They're my favorite cards. So I think the thing that I like about them so much is like, provided you don't like crease them, they feel brand new, but when they were brand new, they never felt overly stiff like paper cards do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know it's the Kickstarter campaign I was talking about. I have 3 decks of cards from them. One deck was a Kickstarter limited run. It was just an exclusive color for the backing. So the second deck is the production run, which is the exact same thing, just in a different color. But the third set was a waterproof PVC material. And I just thought that was a a neat concept to be able to drop that one in my camera bag for the reference aspect and not have to worry about it getting wet or anything else, and knowing that they would be fine.
Oh, that is nice. That is.
And thinking about it, the Theory 11 cards, I haven't played with them. That's the big thing. Like, I've pulled them out, I've looked at them. I haven't even shuffled the deck at this point because I haven't had a reason to play with them. But the initial feel feels like they would hold up very well, but I don't know if they are. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think they're plastic. I think they're just laminated cardstock.
Yeah. Well, is that a wrap for tonight?
I think so. It certainly covers everything we had on the list. So I think the big thing is if there's anything else to just kind of meander through, or if that seems like it does it.
I think that's a wrap.
I do think when I have some time over the next couple of days, I'm going to look at the old writings and all and shoot just some ideas for what pops into my head on the trailer thing. Do you want to have an episode that's kind of talking through that, or do you want to save that for just offline general conversation? I guess the question is, how much crossover do you want between the endeavor and the podcasts? And I'm perfectly fine with any amount.
I hadn't really thought about that.
And doesn't have to be answered now. Like, it's the kind of thing that, think about it, because that can influence some topic decisions going forward as well.
Yeah, I think so. Let me think about it, because, let me think about that.
And I'll also, when I go through that and shoot some ideas over, I'll probably also include some ideas on what limited video content I will probably do, because that would tie in as well and potentially influence it. Because I kind of have a feeling the trailer discussion, I feel like most of that should be offline, and then do a behind the scenes of putting it together.
Ooh, yeah.
For like YouTube instead. Because I think it's a format that lends itself better. But I just wanted to go ahead and put the thought out there to think about.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too. I like that actually.
All right. I do think that calls it for the night, though.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will be talking to you, and maybe Friday I'll see you.
I'm hoping. It depends a lot on how backed up everything is, since I'll be coming off of 3 weeks of PTO.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is the days are actually noticeably, the daylight hours are noticeably extending. Like, it was still pretty bright outside at 5:00 today, so that was good.
Yeah, I have a feeling the afternoons are going to be fairly accessible on Fridays regardless, so I don't think it'll be that difficult. I think this particular Friday is just the one that's going to be questionable.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, all right. You have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.